On August 30th, 2013, a Toyota Highlander was found overturned at the bottom of a 25-foot embankment near Castaic Lake. Inside, a cell phone, a wallet, a laptop. But the 19-year-old behind the wheel, a college sophomore named Bryce Laspisa, was gone. No footprints, no blood, no trace. It remains one of the most unsettling disappearances of the last decade. But the real mystery is not what happened at that ravine. It is what happened in the 72 hours before Bryce ever reached it. Number 17. Meatloaf with tomato glaze and green beans. Bryce Laspisa's final days at Sierra College were marked by a quiet unraveling that few recognized in real time. On August 27th, 2013, he ended his relationship with his girlfriend, a decision that left a visible crack in his world. Friends later recalled how he seemed distant, distracted, his usual spark dulled by something he would not explain. The breakup was not just a passing storm. It was the kind of rupture that left him restless and adrift. That same week, Bryce began giving away his most personal belongings. He handed his Xbox to his roommate, along with a pair of diamond earrings his mother had given him, a gesture that puzzled those closest to him. These were not just objects, they were pieces of his everyday life, tokens of connection and memory. The roommate, who would later relay these details to Bryce's parents, described the handoff as sudden and strange. No one could say why Bryce felt compelled to let go of things that once mattered so much. For those around him, the signs did not add up to anything obvious. He was not talking about his feelings. He was not asking for help. But the pattern was clear in hindsight. The breakup, the giveaways, the late-night silences. Each act seemed to push him further from the people who cared about him and closer to a private edge no one else could see. By the time Bryce left campus, the foundation of his life, relationships, routines, even his sense of home, had started to slip away. The choices he made in those final hours would set the stage for everything that followed, and for the mystery that would haunt his family and friends for years to come. On the afternoon of August 29th, Bryce's journey took a turn that left even strangers uneasy. Somewhere along the endless stretch of Interstate 5, his Toyota Highlander rolled to a stop near Buttonwillow, a dusty outpost in Kern County. He had run out of gas, an odd mistake for someone used to long drives. At 9:12 a.m., a roadside assistance worker arrived with a can of fuel and logged the delivery in the dispatch records. The technician later described Bryce as calm but strangely detached, sitting quietly in the driver's seat, eyes distant. When asked if he needed help, Bryce insisted he was fine and said he would continue south to Laguna Niguel. But he did not leave right away. Instead, he lingered for hours in the same spot, engine off, staring out at the empty highway. Cell tower data tracked his phone idling in Buttonwillow until nearly 10 a.m., well after the car could have been on the road again. Friends checking in by text received vague, delayed replies. One friend posted later that Bryce's behavior was so out of character, it felt like he was waiting for something, or someone, before moving on. As the sun climbed higher, Bryce finally restarted the Highlander and pulled back onto the interstate. But the hours lost on the roadside hung heavy, a sign that something inside him was shifting. The Button Willow stop was not just a pit stop. It was a silent pause in a journey that was already unraveling, witnessed by a roadside worker who would become one of the last outsiders to see Bryce before he vanished. Each unexplained delay, every hour spent alone in the car, pushed him further from the life he once knew and closer to the darkness waiting on the road ahead. At 11 p.m. on August 29th, Bryce's mother picked up the phone to hear her son's voice, flat and measured. He asked her to pass along a message to his friend Kim. He was fine to drive. He would call again soon. There was no hint of panic, no urgency, just a promise that never came. The digital record shows that after this call, Bryce's cell phone remained active in the hills near Castaic, but he did not head home. Instead, he drifted along the dark, winding roads, the Highlander's headlights cutting through the silence. Hours slipped by. Just after 2 a.m., surveillance cameras positioned on the access road to Castaic Lake captured Bryce's SUV twice in close succession. First, the Highlander climbed toward the lake, then pulled off to the shoulder, pausing in a lonely turnout. Minutes later, the same vehicle reappeared, repeating the maneuver, pulling in, sitting in the dark, then merging back onto the empty road. Both timestamps, 2:15 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., are logged in the security system. No one else is seen. No other car follows. Phone records confirm that at 2:08 a.m., Bryce called his mother again. His voice was steady. He told her he was too tired to keep driving, planned to rest on the roadside, and would call when he woke. The call lasted barely 2 minutes. Afterward, his phone signal stayed fixed near the Castaic cell tower. The map of Bryce's journey now narrows to a single stretch of highway, a handful of pullouts, and 2 silent camera frames. In the darkness before dawn, these are the last confirmed movements of Bryce Laspisa, a young man alone, circling the lake, edging closer to the unknown. At first light on August 30th, the quiet of Lake Hughes Road was broken by the arrival of first responders. A beige Toyota Highlander lay overturned at the bottom of a steep ravine, 25 feet below the edge of the narrow 2-lane. The vehicle's roof was pressed into the dirt, the driver's side crushed against the embankment, as if it had rolled and come to rest in a final, unnatural pose. The surrounding brush, thick and dry from the late summer heat, pressed in on all sides, making the wreck nearly invisible from the road above. The drop from the guardrail was abrupt. It was a sharp descent that cut away from the asphalt with no warning, and a thin line of gravel marked the edge before the earth gave way. Tire tracks led straight to the break in the brush, then vanished over the lip. The impact angle told its own story. The SUV had left the pavement at a shallow arc, sliding sideways before tumbling down the slope. The ground at the base was littered with broken glass and twisted metal, but the cabin appeared eerily undisturbed. Officers scanned the scene for any sign of movement, calling out into the tangled undergrowth. There was no answer. The rear window of the Highlander had shattered, scattering fragments across the ravine floor, but the doors hung loosely, neither forced nor flung wide. The silence of the place pressed in, broken only by the distant hum of early morning traffic winding through the hills above. The geography of this stretch of Lake Hughes Road is unforgiving. Sharp switchbacks, blind corners, and steep drop-offs leave little room for error. The embankment where the Highlander landed measured just over 25 feet from road to ravine floor, steep enough to hide a vehicle from passing eyes, yet close enough to the lake's edge to raise grim possibilities. In those first moments, the physical stakes of the mystery became brutally clear. A car, a ravine, and a missing driver, all anchored in a place where the land itself seemed to swallow the evidence whole. Inside the Highlander, the scene was as puzzling as the crash itself. The doors hung loosely on their hinges, but the cabin looked almost untouched. Bryce's cell phone sat on the passenger seat, screen dark, battery still holding a charge. His wallet, with cash and his driver's license, rested in the center console, unopened, undisturbed. On the floor behind the driver's seat, officers logged a closed laptop, the same one he had used for college assignments. These were not just afterthoughts or forgotten items. They were the essentials of a road trip, the things no one leaves behind if they are planning to disappear, or if they are running from something. The official inventory, later summarized by the California Highway Patrol, listed each object by time and location. Phone, wallet, laptop, car keys, all present, all accounted for. There was no sign of a struggle, no evidence that anyone else had rifled through the vehicle. The glove compartment remained shut. A tiny drop of blood on the driver's side seatbelt, later matched to Bryce, was the only physical trace he left behind. The rest of the interior was clean. No footprints, no scattered papers, no frantic search for belongings. Even the rear window, shattered during the crash, had spilled glass outward, not inward, leaving the back seat pristine. The evidence team from the California Highway Patrol worked methodically, bagging each item and logging the time of collection. Their arrival was clocked at just after 7:30 in the morning, less than 2 hours after the first call came in from a passing driver. The rapid response meant that nothing had time to be disturbed by weather, animals, or curious onlookers. Every object was cataloged, sealed, and transferred to the sheriff's evidence room. The inventory told its own story, a story of things left behind with no clear reason, in a car that seemed to have been exited by choice, not force. The question that haunted investigators from the start: why would Bryce leave everything he needed to survive? And where could he have gone with nothing but the clothes on his back? Search teams moved in fast, racing the rising sun and the heat that already pressed down on the hills around Castaic Lake. The ravine where Bryce's Highlander landed was only the beginning. Dense chaparral, thick, tangled, and nearly impenetrable, covered the slopes in every direction. Even at midday, the brush closed in, limiting visibility to less than 30 feet. For ground crews, every step meant pushing through a wall of dry branches and brittle leaves, the air thick with dust and the sharp scent of sage. Canine handlers wasted no time. They brought in scent dogs trained to track the faintest human trace. A swab from Bryce's car seat, a t-shirt from the trunk. Anything that might hold his scent became the starting point. The dogs circled the wreck, noses pressed low, before picking up a trail that led away from the vehicle and toward the dam at the eastern edge of the lake. Handlers called out updates over the radio, marking each turn and pause on their GPS units. For a brief stretch, the dogs seemed certain, pulling hard across the gravel and out along the dam's concrete spine. But just as quickly as the trail began, it faded. The wind off the water scattered the scent, and the dogs doubled back, noses twitching, searching for a thread that no longer held. Handler notes from that morning described the frustration. The dogs lost the trail at the dam, circling and sniffing, but never regaining direction. The thick chaparral, combined with shifting breezes and the lake's open expanse, made tracking nearly impossible beyond that point. Teams fanned out along the shoreline, combing through reeds and rocky inlets, but found nothing. No footprints, no discarded clothing, not even a broken branch to suggest which way Bryce had gone. The urgency was real, but so were the limits. Every hour that passed without a new clue deepened the uncertainty. The first wave of searchers had mapped the ground, but the trail ended in silence. In the early hours, the only evidence left behind was a vanished scent and a landscape that swallowed the path as quickly as it revealed it. In the days and weeks after Bryce Laspisa vanished, the search for answers ran headlong into a wall of missing data. From the beginning, law enforcement threw everything they had at the case. Ground teams cut through the thick chaparral, pushing deeper into the ravines and rocky outcrops surrounding Castaic Lake. K9 units, trained to pick up even the faintest human scent, were rotated in and out, but their trails always faded at the dam or dissolved into the brush. Helicopters swept overhead, combing the hills with infrared cameras, while divers and sonar teams scoured the lake's cold, murky bottom. Not a single piece of clothing, no footprints, no sign of movement. Just the silence of the hills and the empty car below. The numbers tell their own story. Dozens of deputies, search and rescue volunteers, and at least 2 separate K9 teams covered the area in overlapping grids. Sonar scans mapped the entire shoreline, and aerial sweeps extended for miles in every direction. Still, every search came up empty. No one spotted Bryce on a traffic camera. No witness reported seeing a lone figure on the road. And no credible sightings ever filtered in through the sheriff's tip line. Rumors and false leads poured in online, but none passed basic verification. Even the official record holds its secrets. The California Highway Patrol's collision report, the standard CHP 555, remains sealed, its pages locked away from public view. No detailed evidence logs, no full forensic analysis, no chain of custody forms have been released. The only facts that escaped are the ones already known. A car, a drop of blood, a vanished driver. The rest is a void, a case file thick with missing pages. The investigation, for all its urgency, ran up against the limits of what could be found in a place that seemed determined to hide its answers. 3 theories shape the search for Bryce Laspisa, each grounded in fragments and uncertainty. The first considers voluntary disappearance. Bryce's breakup, the gifts of prized belongings, and hours spent alone in his car suggest a young man preparing to leave his life behind. Missing persons expert Jill Harmon notes that sudden departures among young adults often follow this pattern: abrupt farewells, no warning, and a clean break. Yet, the absence of any financial activity, confirmed sightings, or credible leads over more than 10 years weighs heavily against this idea. Accidental death forms the second hypothesis. The overturned SUV, the steep ravine, and the vanished scent trail point to a fatal fall or drowning near Castaic Lake. Search teams use sonar, divers, and scent dogs, covering the lake and rugged hillsides for days. Statistically, accidental deaths in remote areas do occur, but Dr. Gary Brannigan, a forensic psychologist, observes that even in the most challenging terrain, some trace is usually found. Here, no clothing, no remains, nothing. The third theory is foul play. Online rumors swirl, abduction and third-party involvement, but the official record is silent. No evidence of struggle, no sign of another person, and no forensic trace but Bryce's. Law enforcement maintains that nothing supports a crime. In the absence of answers, misinformation flourishes, filling gaps with stories unsupported by fact. Each theory carries its own flaws, leaving only questions and the silence Bryce left behind. Every year, over 600,000 people go missing in the United States. Most are found. Some, like Bryce, vanish into the margins, leaving only questions and haunted families behind. The silence after a disappearance is its own kind of terror. And until answers surface, the shadows at the edge of the map just keep growing. Share your theories below. Someone may hold the missing piece.